They thought I didn't know. They thought I was too distracted setting the table, too busy reheating dishes, too grateful just to be invited. But I heard them. I heard every whisper, every laugh muffled behind a glass of wine, every comment about how I ruined the photos. At first, I didn't believe it. I told myself I must have misunderstood. But then, one night after everyone left, I was helping my cousin clean up her living room when I found it, the family album. Pages and pages of our gatherings, our holidays, our supposed memories, except mine. Wherever I should have been, there was a tear, a blank space, a careful cut. My face, my body, my presence, erased as if I were a stain someone tried to scrub out. I stood there holding those torn pages, feeling something inside me split in the same way. I had spent my whole life taking care of everyone. I gave up school to look after my parents. I cooked, I cleaned, I managed their medications. I carried the responsibility and the weight and the silence. And when they died, I thought maybe, just maybe, my family would become my place in the world. But they didn't want a place for me, not even in a photograph. That night, I closed the album slowly and whispered to myself, if they don't want me in their pictures, I'll learn to make my own. If you've ever felt erased or unseen, this channel is for you. Subscribe and turn on the bell. Here, your story matters. I don't remember the first time someone called me big, but I do remember the first time I realized what it meant. I was 7, sitting on the front steps with an ice pop melting down my wrist. My aunt walked by, looked at me the way people look at clutter they don't want in their house, and said, if she keeps eating like that, she'll outgrow the rest of us. Everyone laughed. I pretended not to hear. I pretended a lot of things back then. At school, I sat in the back of the classroom, not because I couldn't see the board, but because I didn't want anyone to see me. When the teacher asked for volunteers, I never raised my hand. I knew what would come next. The shift in the air, the glances, the snickers, as if my body entered the room before I did. My weight was never just weight. It was a verdict, a label, a shadow that followed me louder than my footsteps. And food. Food was the only place where nothing hurt. When I ate, the world softened. The noise faded. I felt warm for a moment, full, anchored. It didn't matter if it was cookies after school, extra servings at dinner, or leftovers eaten in the dark kitchen when everyone else was asleep. Food made everything quiet. When my parents got sick, the silence disappeared. I was 16 when the roles switched, when I became the adult and they became the ones who needed tending. Doctor visits, medication schedules, sleepless nights, bills I didn't know how to pay. I traded dances, friends, dreams for pill organizers and folded blankets. I learned to measure blood pressure before I ever learned to put on eyeliner. It wasn't duty. It wasn't sacrifice. It was survival, theirs and mine. People said, "You're so strong," but strength feels different from the inside. Strength feels like panic with a steady face. It feels like being afraid to sleep because someone might need you. And when no one asked how I was, food listened. When fear tightened my chest, food loosened it. When loneliness made my hands shake, food steadied them. I didn't eat because I was hungry. I ate because I didn't know what else to hold. By the time my parents passed, years later, I was heavier than I'd ever been. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. The house was too quiet now. Too big for one person, but too full of ghosts for me to leave. I stayed. I kept the same routines because they made the days feel familiar. I reheated the meals they used to like, even if I was the only one eating them. I folded laundry out of habit. The first night alone, I opened the drawer where we kept their medication and cried until the sun came up. And then I ate, and ate, and ate. Not out of hunger, but out of fear that if I stopped, I would disappear entirely. My family checked in at first, a call here, a text there. But grief has a way of fading faster for the people not living in the house where it happened. Soon, invitations became occasional, then rare, then conditional. Come if you want, they'd say, which meant, come, but don't stay too long. Come, but don't make anyone uncomfortable. Come, but don't be too loud, too emotional, too present. I told myself I didn't mind. I told myself that being included in any form was enough. But the thing about crumbs is that they only feel like generosity to someone starving. And I was starving. Not for food, I had plenty of that. I was starving for a place to belong, for someone to look at me without flinching, for someone to say, sit with us, and mean it. So I held on to family gatherings like they were life preservers. Holidays, birthdays, Sunday lunches, I planned my whole year around them. I rehearsed outfits, practiced smiles, tried to make myself smaller, quieter, less noticeable. I wanted so desperately to be wanted that I didn't see what was right in front of me. The pitying glances, the whispered comments, the forced laughter, the disgust. But the truth always finds a way out. For me, it came in the form of that torn album, a shrine of memories where I did not exist. I didn't ruin their photos. I ruined their idea of perfection. I took up space they didn't want to acknowledge. And the irony was bitter. For years I erased myself to fit into their world, only to discover they had erased me anyway. After that night, something in me broke, but something else woke up. A tiny spark buried so deep inside that at first I mistook it for anger. It wasn't. It was vision. A blurry, trembling vision of who I could be if I stopped trying to squeeze myself into the corners of other people's expectations. I didn't know what healing looked like. I didn't know what beauty was supposed to feel like. I only knew one thing. If they didn't want me in their pictures, I would learn how to create images where I was not the mistake. I was the meaning. And for the first time in my life, food didn't quiet the pain. It amplified it. Forced me to confront the truth that I had spent years feeding an emptiness that no amount of calories could fill. That night, I closed the refrigerator door, sat on the kitchen floor, and whispered the sentence that would change my life. I need to choose me, even if I don't know how. The days after the album felt like walking through a house without lights. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. I moved from room to room like a guest in my own life, touching objects I had touched 1,000 times before, yet feeling no connection to any of them. My parents' chairs, the worn-out sofa, the kitchen table where I spent years preparing meals. I looked at everything and felt a pressure in my chest, a heaviness that wasn't entirely physical but felt heavier than any part of my body. For the first time, I didn't eat to soothe the ache. I ate to disappear. Each bite felt like adding another layer between me and the world. I wasn't trying to feel better. I was trying not to feel at all. I avoided mirrors. Their reflections were too loud, too honest. I passed by the hallway mirror one morning and caught a glimpse of myself. Hair unwashed, eyes swollen, shirt clinging to the rolls on my sides, stomach folding over the waistband of pants that no longer fit comfortably. My face looked tired in a way that sleep could not fix. My whole body felt swollen with years of unspoken things, years of carrying everyone but myself. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. It was like staring at a stranger who had been living in my house, eating my food, wearing my clothes. The truth burned. The stranger was me. My routine fell apart. Days blended into nights without shape. I stayed inside for weeks, blinds closed, phone on silent, existing more than living. The world outside moved on without me. Cars passing, children playing, stores opening and closing. But inside my house, time felt stuck in a thick, suffocating silence. I slept at odd hours, woke up exhausted, sat on the couch until my legs went numb, then moved to the bed to lie down again. Grief, shame, loneliness, everything tangled together until I couldn't tell where one feeling ended and another began. The compulsive eating got worse. I would wake up with crumbs on my shirt, wrappers beside me, not remembering when I had opened them. It wasn't hunger, it was habit, it was escape, it was self-punishment disguised as comfort. One night, after a particularly long binge, half a cake, leftover pasta, a box of crackers, I found myself sitting on the kitchen floor with the refrigerator still open, cold air brushing against my arms. I wasn't crying. Crying requires energy. I just stared into the refrigerator as if I could fall into it and disappear. It hit me then. I wasn't living. I was decaying. Slowly, quietly, almost politely. I pressed my back against the cabinet and felt my heart pounding in a way that scared me. I placed a hand on my chest, waiting for it to slow down, but it didn't. My breath turned shallow, my hands went cold, my entire body shook with a panic I hadn't felt before. In that moment, I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe my body had finally reached its limit. Maybe it was shutting down. And a terrifying part of me didn't care. When the panic finally faded, it left behind a silence so deep I could hear my own breathing. I lay on the kitchen floor staring at the ceiling, and I realized how empty my life had become without anyone to take care of. I had no purpose, no direction, nothing pulling me out of bed each morning. It was the first time I admitted something I had been avoiding for years. Without my parents to care for, I didn't know who I was. I had never learned to want things for myself. I had never learned to dream without guilt. I only knew how to serve, how to sacrifice, how to shrink myself to fit into the corners of other people's lives. But the album, that torn, incomplete album, became the crack where the light entered. Not hope, not yet, but awareness. Something inside me whispered, "You can't stay like this." It wasn't motivation, it was survival. A thin thread pulling me away from the edge. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to heal. All I knew was that if I didn't find something, anything to hold on to, I would drown in myself. One morning, I turned on my computer out of habit, scrolling aimlessly, avoiding messages, avoiding the world. A photograph popped up on the homepage of a website. Nothing special, just a portrait of an older woman smiling softly at the camera. But something about it made me stop. The light, the colors, the rawness in her eyes. It felt like the photo was telling a story without speaking. I clicked it. Then another. Then another. Hours passed. For the first time in months, my heart moved, even if only slightly. Photography wasn't just pictures, it was truth. And I was starving for truth. My whole life, I had been framed by other people's lenses. People who twisted, cropped, erased. Maybe it was time I learned how to use my own. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I whispered something different. Not despair, not anger. A question. What if I tried? Not to be thin, not to be accepted, not to belong, but to live. To learn how to see the world and myself with a different kind of light. It was a small thought, fragile. But it was enough to make me sit up, turn on the lamp, and search online photography courses. It was the first step out of the darkest part of my life, and I didn't even know it. The decision didn't come like a lightning strike. It wasn't dramatic, loud, or sudden. It came slowly, like a soft knock at the door of a house that had been silent for too long. The morning after I searched for photography courses, I woke up with the same heaviness in my body, the same familiar tightness in my chest, but something was different. A thin thread of curiosity pulled me out of bed. I sat at my desk, the same one where I had paid bills, organized my parents' medications, and eaten countless meals alone. My finger hovered over the enroll button of a basic photography class. It cost almost nothing. It required nothing except a connection to the internet and a willingness to learn. And still, I hesitated. My mind whispered the same doubts I had heard my whole life. You? Why would you start something now? You'll quit. You always quit. You're too old, too tired, too heavy to begin again. But I clicked the button anyway. Maybe out of defiance. Maybe out of desperation. Maybe because something inside me was tired of dying slowly. The confirmation email felt unreal. It didn't feel like change yet, but it felt like possibility. A word I had forgotten belonged to me. The lessons were simple at first. Light, shadow, composition. I watched them late at night, wrapped in a blanket. The same blanket I used during the darkest nights when I felt like disappearing. But now it warmed me differently. It held me without suffocating. I paused videos, rewound them, took notes like a student who had been starved for learning. And I had. My whole life I had been studying survival, not passion. This felt new, almost tender. The more I learned, the more I realized how photography wasn't just about seeing, it was about noticing, capturing details no one else pays attention to. And I had spent decades noticing everything: medication schedules, doctor's instructions, family dynamics, people's moods, the way silence shifts in a room. I had spent so long watching others that learning to watch the world felt strangely natural. But studying wasn't enough. I needed to move. My body was tired, heavy, stiff from years of carrying everyone but myself. The panic attack on the kitchen floor lingered in my memory like a warning. I didn't want to die. Not like that. Not alone in a house full of ghosts. One morning, after a lesson about natural light, I stood up from my desk and realized I was out of breath from doing nothing. My joints hurt. My back ached. My ankles felt swollen. I walked to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. Not with disgust, not with self-hatred, but with a kind of mourning. I saw the woman who survived everything. The woman who carried too much for too long. The woman who deserved a life bigger than the one she had been given. I touched my own face gently, as if seeing myself for the first time, and I whispered, I want to stay. Not for anyone else, for me. I didn't start with the diet. Diets had been thrown at me all my life, punishments disguised as help. Instead, I started with movement. I put on old sneakers, grabbed the headphones I barely used, and stepped outside. The air was cold against my skin. The sun felt too bright. My legs, unaccustomed to walking for more than a few minutes at a time, protested immediately. I walked slowly around the block, one heavy step after another, feeling my breath struggle, my heart pound, sweat gather at my temples. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't graceful, but it was mine. The next day, I walked again, and again, and again. Each time my steps became a little steadier, my breath a little deeper. I didn't weigh myself. I didn't count calories. I counted moments, moments where I chose myself. Weeks passed and my walks grew longer. I signed up for a small neighborhood gym, the kind open early for people who didn't want to be seen. The first day I walked in, I almost left. The mirrors felt like threats. The machines felt like reminders of everything I wasn't. But a trainer approached me, not with judgment, but with gentleness. Let's start slow, he said. And for once I believed someone wasn't trying to fix me. They were trying to help me live. As my body changed, even if just slightly, something else changed with it. Movement made my mind quieter. Exercise softened the sharp edges inside me. I found myself thinking clearer, breathing deeper, sleeping better. And strangely, the more I moved, the more I wanted to learn about photography. I bought a used camera with money I had saved from my parents' pension. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't new. But when I held it, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: excitement. Every morning after the gym, I practiced. Light through the window, shadows across the floor, trees outside the house, my own hands, the reflection of my camera in the mirror. I wasn't good at first, but I wasn't bad either. I was learning. I was trying. And that felt like a kind of rebirth. One afternoon, while photographing the sunlight hitting the kitchen counter, I realized something. Photography wasn't just teaching me how to see the world. It was teaching me how to see myself, not as a burden, not as a mistake, but as someone worth focusing on, worth capturing, worth keeping. That day, I made a promise. I won't erase myself anymore. And for the first time in my life, it felt like a promise I could keep. Progress didn't arrive loudly. It came in small, almost invisible shifts. Tiny victories that felt insignificant on their own, but together formed the outline of a life I had never allowed myself to imagine. The first shift was routine. My days, once shapeless and heavy, slowly began to take form. Wake up, walk, gym, shower, breakfast, photography lesson, practice, rest, repeat. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. For the first time, my life didn't revolve around someone else's needs. My footsteps no longer followed the rhythm of medication schedules or doctor appointments. Every hour I spent was an hour I had chosen. At first, that freedom felt strange, almost selfish. I wasn't used to giving anything to myself. Not time, not care, not attention. But I kept going because something deep inside whispered, "Don't stop now." The second shift came with the camera itself. The more I practiced, the more confident I felt. I spent hours outdoors capturing corners of the neighborhood I had walked by 1,000 times without noticing. Cracked sidewalks blooming with weeds, elderly couples holding hands on afternoon strolls, stray cats stretching lazily on fences, children chasing each other, their laughter echoing between houses. Ordinary moments, but through the lens they felt extraordinary, like life was unfolding for me in ways I had never seen before. Photography made me feel like I could shape something beautiful out of the world, even if I had never been able to shape beauty out of myself. At least, that's what I used to believe. The third shift was inside my own body. My clothes began to loosen. Not dramatically, not magically, but enough that I noticed. My breath felt less tight. My knees hurt a little less when I stood up. My movements felt more fluid. One morning, after weeks of effort, I bent down to tie my shoes without having to sit first, and tears filled my eyes. Not from sadness, but from the realization that I had spent years believing change was impossible for someone like me. That belief had kept me trapped more than my weight ever did. But now, I was changing. Not for others, not for approval, not for a seat at someone's table. For me. Only for me. The fourth shift came the day I received an email from my photography instructor. I had submitted a set of practice photos for feedback, expecting nothing more than technical corrections. Instead, he wrote, "You see emotion where others see scenes. That's rare. Don't stop." My hands shook as I reread the message. Rare. Me. The woman who had been erased from her own family's photos. The woman who thought she had nothing to offer the world except caretaking and apologies. Someone saw something in my work, something worth nurturing. That night, I stayed awake editing photos until almost morning. Not because I felt pressure, but because I felt alive. Eventually, I gathered the courage to sign up for the practical portion of the course, photographing real people in real environments. The idea terrified me. I had never directed anyone, never held authority over a subject, never even believed I deserved to be seen, let alone to tell someone else how to appear in front of a lens. But I went. I showed up at the workshop trembling, my camera feeling heavier than usual. When my instructor introduced me to the group, I felt a familiar panic rising. Memories of classrooms, of being noticed for the wrong reasons, of being laughed at, of never fitting in. But no one laughed. No one stared. No one whispered. They welcomed me with warmth, kindness, and curiosity. They didn't see the overweight woman trying to hide in the back. They saw a fellow photographer. My first subject was a teenage girl with braces and shy eyes. She looked at me nervously and asked, "Do I stand like this?" I adjusted her posture gently, guided her chin toward the light, and when I looked through the camera, something clicked. Not the shutter, but something inside me. I knew what to do. I knew how to make her feel safe. I knew how to capture her softness, her uncertainty, her quiet bravery. And when I showed her the photo, her face lit up. "I've never looked like that before," she whispered. Neither had I. It was the first time I realized that photography wasn't just a skill. It was a form of healing for both sides of the lens. Word began to spread. A neighbor asked if I could photograph her newborn. A friend of a friend wanted portraits for her small business. A local teacher hired me to capture her retirement party. Each session built my confidence. Each click of the shutter pushed me further out of the shadows I had lived in for years. My house, once suffocating with grief and stagnation, slowly transformed. The dining table became a workspace filled with prints, memory cards, and editing notes. The walls, once bare, held my favorite photos, images full of life, color, expression. Pictures I created, pictures no one would ever erase. As my bookings increased, so did my strength. I moved from long walks to light jogging, from gym machines to beginner classes. I wasn't fast, I wasn't flexible, but I was consistent. And consistency, I learned, is a kind of devotion. My body continued to change, soft curves replacing swelling, a waistline emerging, my face gaining definition I hadn't seen since adolescence. But the real transformation was deeper. Every pound shed felt like shedding a belief that had kept me small. Every step forward felt like reclaiming a part of myself I had lost. Every click of the camera felt like building a life that had never existed for me before. A life where I wasn't the caretaker, the afterthought, the invisible woman in the corner. A life where I was the one creating the memories, not being erased from them. And I wasn't done building, not even close. At first, I thought the changes in my life were quiet, private things, shifts no one would notice except me. But life has a way of reflecting back what you give it, and soon, the world around me began to shift too. It started with a message from a woman I barely knew, someone who lived 2 streets away and had seen a few of my photos online. "Your pictures feel like they breathe," she wrote. "Would you photograph my daughter? She's turning 15 and she doesn't like herself much." I read the message twice, 3 times. I knew what that felt like, not liking yourself, not fitting into the world or into the mirror. I agreed, not because I wanted the job, but because something inside me recognized the ache. On the day of the session, the girl stood stiffly in front of me, her arms crossed over her chest, her eyes glued to the floor. She reminded me of myself at that age, trying to shrink into the smallest version of myself so no one would see how uncomfortable I was. I spoke to her gently, showed her how to turn her face toward the light, how to breathe slowly, how to hold herself not with perfection, but with presence. When I showed her the first photo, her lips parted in surprise. "That's me?" she whispered. And in her voice, I heard the faint echo of something I had been discovering myself. Maybe beauty wasn't something we had to earn. Maybe it was something we had to learn to see. Word spread faster than I expected. People shared my photos with friends, then those friends shared them with others, and soon my inbox was filled with requests. Not big jobs, birthday portraits, small family moments, a woman wanting new pictures after a divorce, a mother wanting photos with her newborn because she hadn't felt pretty enough before. They weren't clients, they were stories looking for a witness. Every session felt like holding someone's heart in my hands, fragile, trembling, hopeful. And every time I reminded myself of the promise I had made, I would not erase anyone, not their softness, not their insecurities, not their truth. I captured them the way I was learning to see myself, with compassion. One afternoon, while photographing an older woman in her garden, she paused mid-pose and looked at me closely. "You have a calmness about you," she said, "like you've lived through storms and now know how to stand in the sun." I didn't know how to respond, but her words lingered long after the session ended. Calmness wasn't something I ever associated with myself. I had lived in emergency mode for so long that peace felt like a foreign language. And yet there it was, in the way I held my camera, in the way I spoke to people, in the way I no longer hid behind oversized clothing or hunched shoulders. As my portfolio grew, so did my reputation. A local community center reached out, asking if I could teach a beginner's photography workshop. Me. Teaching. The idea felt absurd, like trying on a jacket far too big for me. But something made me say yes. The first class was a circle of 6 women, all different ages and backgrounds, each carrying a heaviness behind their eyes. I began by telling them what no one had ever told me. Photography isn't about being perfect. It's about paying attention, and every one of you has something worth noticing. As I spoke, I felt a warmth inside me that I didn't recognize at first. Confidence. Real, earned confidence. Not the kind I pretended to have at family gatherings, hoping someone would acknowledge my effort. This was different. This came from building something with my own hands, my own eyes, my own growth. Soon, even strangers began approaching me in public. At the grocery store, a woman hesitated before tapping my shoulder. "Are you the photographer?" she asked, holding her phone with one of my images saved on the screen. "Your photos, they make people look like they matter." I swallowed the lump in my throat, because for so long, I had believed I didn't matter. And now, here was someone telling me I made others feel like they did. The changes weren't only external. Inside, something was blooming. My steps felt lighter, my posture straighter, my breaths deeper. My clothes fit differently, not because I was shrinking into someone new, but because I was growing into myself. Little by little, I shifted from very obese to plus size, then from plus size to something closer to mid-size. I wasn't thin. That was never the goal. But I was strong, steady, present. My face, once swollen from years of hiding and grieving, now carried a softness that came from living, not surviving. Sometimes I would catch my reflection unexpectedly, in a shop window, in the mirror at the gym, and not recognize myself immediately. Not because I looked different, but because I felt different. What surprised me most was how people responded to my presence, not with pity, not with patronizing encouragement, but with respect. Real respect. The kind I had never been given before. Women in my workshops began confiding in me. They told me about their fears, their insecurities, their dreams they had buried under the expectations of others. They cried sometimes while looking at their own portraits. "I didn't know I could look like this," they said. And every time I answered softly, "You always looked like this. You just needed someone to show you." There was a moment during a workshop break when I stepped outside to breathe. The evening light was soft, golden, the kind of light photographers dream about. And I felt something shift inside me, a quiet, powerful realization. I was no longer the invisible woman who stayed quiet in the corner of family photos. I was the one holding the camera. I was the one creating the images people cherished. I was the one helping others see their own light. The echo of other voices, voices grateful, inspired, touched, filled the spaces where my loneliness used to live. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt like I mattered. Not because someone said so, not because I fit somewhere, but because I had become someone who sees, someone who listens, someone who creates. And I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. For most of my life, I imagined the moment I would finally confront my family. I pictured myself walking into a gathering, thinner, confident, transformed, and watching their faces twist in shock. I imagined silence falling over the room as they realized that the woman they had cropped out of their photos had rebuilt herself into someone they could no longer ignore. In my fantasies, I had the perfect words ready, sharp enough to cut, but polished enough to sound righteous. "Remember when you erased me?" I would say. "Look at me now." But life doesn't unfold like the revenge scenes in movies, and when the opportunity finally came, the moment I had rehearsed 1,000 times never happened the way I expected. It happened quietly, almost gently, wrapped in irony and fate. It started with an email from the local community center. They were organizing a citywide campaign on self-esteem, especially focused on women who had spent their lives feeling invisible. I was invited not to attend, but to photograph the entire project. They wanted authenticity, emotion, softness. "Your work does that," the organizer wrote. "You make people see themselves differently." I stared at the email for a long time. The campaign would involve posters, social media, exhibitions, and public displays across the city. My name would be on every single piece. Me, the woman no one thought worth remembering in a family photo. Me, the woman whose own relatives had torn her face out of their albums. I accepted without hesitation. The planning phase was intense. Meetings, interviews, scouting locations, studying the light in different parts of town. Every minute of it filled me with an energy I had never felt before. I watched women bloom in front of my camera, women of all sizes, ages, backgrounds. Some cried, some laughed, some hugged me after seeing their photos. "No one has ever captured me without criticizing something," one woman whispered, tears dripping onto her shirt. And every time I lifted my camera, I remembered a version of myself who once begged silently to be seen. When the campaign finally launched, it wasn't just an event, it was a transformation. Posters covered buildings, billboards lit up busy streets, banners hung from lampposts, images of real women, stretch marks, wrinkles, softness, strength, filled every corner of the city. My signature, subtle but present, sat at the bottom of every photograph. Seeing it made my heart swell. I had spent my whole life being erased, and now my name was everywhere. A week into the campaign, something unexpected happened. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. "Is that your work all over town?" she wrote. "It looks incredible." Then another relative commented on a photo the city posted online, and another, and another. Slowly, my notification feed filled with familiar names, people who once invited me only out of obligation, people who exchanged glances when I entered a room, people who had laughed at jokes I never heard but always felt. They were sharing my photos now, praising them, reposting them, tagging each other. "Did you know she was this talented? She's really doing something special. So proud." Proud. A word none of them had ever used about me when I was breaking my back caring for dying parents. A word they never offered when I was slipping deeper into myself, eating alone in silence. A word so easy to give now that I had climbed my way out of the hole they helped bury me in. The organizer invited me to the opening ceremony of the official exhibition. People arrived dressed nicely, voices echoing through the gallery filled with my work. I watched from the corner, my camera hanging against my hip, as strangers stood before my images with soft eyes. And then I saw them, my family. They had come in a group, dressed as if attending a wedding or a graduation. Their steps slowed as they realized every image on the walls belonged to me. They walked from photo to photo, whispering, pointing, reading the captions attached to each print. Their eyes moved with a mix of surprise and something else, something quieter, heavier. Shame, maybe, or regret. But I wasn't close enough to hear. I didn't want to hear. My aunt, the same one who once said I would outgrow everyone, stood in front of a large portrait of a woman laughing with her eyes closed. My signature was right there beside it. She lifted her hand to her mouth as if holding something in. My cousin, the one who cropped me out of every birthday picture, stared at another image with tears welling in her eyes. Someone called my name, a city official who gestured for me to join them near the microphone. "We want the photographer to say a few words," he announced. I stepped forward slowly, feeling dozens of eyes turn to me. Gasps rippled through the room. My family's mouths fell open slightly. I no longer looked like the woman they had erased. I was still plus size, still soft, still me, but stronger, healthier, alive in a way they had never seen. Our eyes met. The air grew thick. I waited for anger to rise, for bitterness to take over, for the speech I had rehearsed all my life to push its way out of my chest. But nothing came. Nothing except peace. I didn't need to confront them. I didn't need explanations or apologies. My life, the one I had built with my own aching hands, was the answer. They didn't need to hear me say anything. They needed to see what I had become. The scene I imagined for years never came. What came instead was something better. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their recognition. I didn't need their love. I had outgrown the version of myself who once begged for a seat at their table. I no longer wanted a place in their album. I had created a gallery of my own. For years, I believed my body was the reason I didn't belong anywhere. It was the first thing people noticed, the first thing they judged, the first thing they offered unsolicited advice about. "You'd be so pretty if you lost weight." "Have you tried this diet?" "Don't let yourself go." Every comment carved a little more space inside me where shame could grow. I thought my body was the enemy, the obstacle between me and the life I wanted. But standing in that gallery during the exhibition, surrounded by images I had created, by people who felt seen because of my work, I realized something I had never understood before. My body wasn't the thing that held me back. My body was the thing that carried me through everything I survived. It carried me through childhood when I felt unnoticed, through adolescence when every mirror felt like an accusation, through years of caring for two sick parents, lifting them, feeding them, tucking them into bed when their strength ran out. It carried me through grief so heavy I thought it would crush me, through nights on the kitchen floor when I didn't know if I wanted to exist at all, through compulsive eating that wasn't about hunger but about filling a void no one else could see. My body never quit on me, even when I quit on myself. It stayed, it endured, it persisted. And slowly, patiently, quietly, it waited. When I started choosing myself, even in small ways, my body responded with a kind of loyalty I didn't think I deserved. It healed, it softened, it steadied. It shifted and changed, not to imitate someone else's beauty, but to hold the weight of the life I was finally building. The changes were slow at first. I didn't become thin, and for the first time, I didn't want to. Thinness wasn't the dream. Living was. Breathing without guilt was. Moving without pain was. Taking up space without apologizing was. And my body, this body I had hated for so long, began to feel like a home I could finally step into. I remember the first morning I noticed the difference. Not in the mirror, but in the way I tied my shoes. I bent down easily, without strain, without holding my breath. It was a simple movement, something most people do without thinking, but for me it felt like a victory. Then there was the day I walked up a flight of stairs without stopping halfway. The day I bought clothes that weren't meant to hide me but to fit me. The day someone told me, "You look like you feel good," and I realized I did. Not because I was smaller, but because I was finally living in alignment with myself. My weight loss wasn't dramatic, but it was intentional. I moved from very obese to plus size, then from plus size to something closer to mid-size. My curves remained, my softness stayed. My shape didn't transform into something unrecognizable. I didn't melt into society's ideal. I evolved into my own. I watched my face change. Less puffiness, more definition. My jawline emerging from beneath years of emotional swelling. My eyes brighter, clearer, unclouded by the fog of survival. But the most beautiful change wasn't physical. It was the way I saw myself. Not through the lens of people who erased me, but through the lens of the woman who chose to rebuild her life, one step, one breath, one photograph at a time. When the exhibition ended that night, I returned home feeling full, not with food, but with meaning. I turned on the lamp, sat on the edge of my bed, and looked at myself in the mirror across the room. I didn't rush to judge. I didn't search for flaws. I looked the way a photographer looks at a subject, with patience, with curiosity, with tenderness. I touched my arms, still soft but stronger. I traced the curve of my waist, which now held definition shaped not by discipline alone, but by healing. I placed a hand over my heart, feeling it beat steadily beneath my ribs. This body had carried me through hell, and it was the same body that brought me back. I lay down that night with a sense of peace I had never felt before. Not the fragile peace that comes from being overlooked, but the sturdy peace that comes from being fully seen by myself. My life was no longer defined by the photos others wanted me erased from. I had created my own gallery, my own story, my own place in the world. And my body, this body, had been the vessel that led me here. No revenge speech, no confrontation, no dramatic ending could compare to the truth settling quietly inside me. I had become someone I was proud to stay alive for. The next morning, as sunlight spilled through my window, I wrote a sentence in my journal. I didn't change my body to be loved. I changed my life so I could love my body. And it was true. Because it wasn't beauty that saved me. It wasn't weight loss. It wasn't success. It wasn't recognition. It was presence. It was courage. It was persistence. And it was this body, my body, that carried me every step of the way. If I ever appear in a family album again, it will be by my choice, under my terms, through my lens. But the truth is, I no longer need their pictures. I have created a world full of images where I exist, fully, loudly, beautifully, and no one can tear me out of them ever again. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.